My name is Thorsten von Overgaard. I'm a Danish photographer. I travel the world taking photographs and teaching photography. Today I'm going to talk about the Fuji X-Pro2 camera. I felt it was time to try a different camera, so I decided to get a Fujifilm X-Pro2 camera. And I got the special, I don't even know if it's a limited edition, but it's actually a special edition graphite, and that looks really awesome, so that's the one I went for. So when I got the Fuji X-Pro2, I unboxed it. I will save you for the unboxing video because it wasn't that sexy. So I put on the lens, and one of the things I noticed is this camera is really light. It doesn't actually have as many buttons as I would fear. I feel that it's light. It's very intuitive, and it kind of brings me a little bit back to when photography was new for me, that this is kind of exciting, and it's also, I don't know, it just feels simple in a way. So I like that. But of course the main interest I had was how does the electronic viewfinder look on this one. And first I was like, I don't even think it has one. Maybe I got the wrong model because I cannot find it. I tried different buttons. Of course I didn't read the manual. But I tried different buttons and I just couldn't find it. So finally I had to give up and I had to look in the manual, and I find out it's actually this button right here. I hadn't seen this button. So this one I can change between pure optical viewfinder with frame and text. That is like an overlay of digital or electronic viewfinder. And then I can turn it also to have that. And then I have a little, down in the right corner, I have a zoom in of the focus areas. I can actually manual focus and see down in the right corner on the frame how does the electronic picture look. And then I can also tilt this one so I get the whole viewfinder in here becomes electronic, and I can see the picture purely electronic. And that's what I wanted to see, how does it work in this one. The thing is, when you get a Fuji with the lens here, it's a 23mm, but I call it a 35 because that's how it works on this crop sensor. Then you have autofocus, and that makes the camera really easy to use, that you basically just take it up and it focuses really quickly, and then you can just take the picture. So it doesn't really matter with the viewfinder how precise or whatever it is. But of course I came from Leica, so I said, okay, I'm going to put on an adapter, and Fuji actually makes an adapter, and is even an intelligent adapter. So I can put on any Leica lens, and the way I do it is simple. I just put on first this one here, and then I could take a lens here that costs 4 or 5 times more than the camera, just for the fun of it, a Noctilux. And the thing with the Noctilux is also that it has extremely narrow focus, so you have to be really precise with your focusing. And when I turned on the electronic viewfinder here, I found out this actually works. I'm not sure that I see it super precise, but then I look at the picture and it works. So it's not that I would say that this is like state of the art or some future space technology EVF, but it works. And that's actually the thing I like with the whole camera. This thing just works. It's light. It's not super expensive. You can just take pictures with it. And I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but that's actually what I want to use the camera for. So that's perfect. In many ways, the Fuji X-Pro2 is, I mean, it just feels really natural in the hand. I put on a different strap, a tie-her-up leather strap, because it's much easier to mount on the camera, and it has the right length. And I just went using the camera, and it's simple. I like it. Then I get into the trouble. There's actually a lot of buttons here and there, and there's a really extremely complicated menu. I don't agree with that. I think photography is really simple. Camera is basically just a matter of getting the exposure right. So anything on a camera that doesn't have anything to do with exposure basically doesn't belong on the camera, and this one has a lot of it. So I would suddenly find that I went from black and white to color, and I didn't know what button I pressed. And I find out I have a wheel here, I have something here, and different buttons. I have a Q here, and I have a AF L button here, and I also have exposure here, and a lot of stuff that, in my opinion, doesn't really belong in a camera. So what do you do with that? Well, you basically have to read the manual, and I don't think that anybody's ever going to use all of the stuff that is in here. I think it's a matter of finding out what's there and then find a way through it. And you say, this is my settings, and that's the things I have to use on the camera and I have to know about. The rest, I don't care. But before you can get there, you actually have to find out what is it, because maybe there is something you need to know about. And one great thing about the Fuji is that it comes with manuals. Well, it comes in different languages, but this one is the English one. And the manual here is actually really well made. That's kind of unusual for manuals for anything, camera, electronics, or videos and stuff, because this one have a chapter first that says before you begin, and that's all. What is this thing, what is this thing, and so on, how to put in the battery and so on. And then you have first steps, and then you come into basic photography and playback, and then you can have a chapter on movie if you want to do that, and you have a whole chapter about the Q button, and then you have here almost in the back you have reference about the menus and so on. So it's made so you can actually figure it out. And then they have a really genius thing, and that is they have a manual that says new features guide. So that means if you had the Fuji X-Pro, not the 2, but the X-Pro first, and now you get this one, you basically know your camera, you would presume, so you just need to know what's changed, and that is in this little manual. And that's a genius way to do it. This is actually a user's manual. It's made for use, and that's, I mean, it's so unusual they should get a Grammy or an Oscar or something for this. So I studied this to find out how does this camera work, but basically I just stayed with more or less the settings I had to begin with. So the Fuji here doesn't have a full frame sensor like the Leica has. When you use the kit lens or the standard lens here that it comes with, it doesn't really matter. It's a 35, and 35 is 35. So, and it's actually a classic, very good Fuji lens. They make good optics. Then when you put on, for example, a 50mm lens from another system, then you have to take into consideration that you have a crop factor. It basically just means you move back a little bit if you want to have the same frame. So it's not really a big deal. The sensor is 24 megapixels, so it's the same pixel count as the M240 or M10, so that doesn't really make a big difference. The interesting thing with any new camera you get or new generation of an existing camera is that usually it has a new sensor, and that means you're going to have a new look, and you're going to spend weeks or months trying to adjust that to the look that you want to have. The Fuji has a really interesting thing, because you can do the same as I can do with Leica, and you can actually do it with Nikon DSLRs and everything, just not many people know. But that is that you can record a RAW file and a JPEG at the same time. And the RAW is always going to be color because it's the sensor data, all the sensor data that just recorded and put into an editing program like Lightroom. And then the JPEG, you can tweak the JPEG. So that means in my Leicas I will set the JPEG to monochrome. So when I import in Lightroom, I get a color and a JPEG in black and white next to each other. So I have all my pictures in color and black and white from the beginning, so I can see which one looks the best. And sometimes, or often, the color and the black and white are good pictures, so I'll edit both of them, put them in the archive. The same I can do with the Fuji. And then the Fuji have different film looks you can apply to the JPEG in colors. And it also have a standard black and white. And you can even add color fillers to that one. So you can add a yellow filler, red filler, green filler. And that's like you put color fillers in front of the lens in the old days. And a yellow filler is going to make yellow tones look brighter and blue tones look darker. So that's how you get a darker sky in black and white. The Fuji X-Pro2 have a really cool black and white setting that is called Acros. And that's not the name of a hip hopper. I looked it up because I actually didn't know what does Acros mean. Is it some weird name for something? But it's actually a name for a black and white film. And what Fuji did is they did a setting so that emulates that black and white setting that is kind of contrasty and very detailed in the tones, and that gives some really nice skin tones in black and white and so on. So that's the black and white setting I set this camera for. And again, you can go into sub-menus, as you can. A lot of this camera have a lot of sub-menus for everything. So also the black and white, you can go sub-menus in different types of this film with color filters and so on. But I just stay with the standard, and it looks amazing. I don't even go in and consider, is this like a high quality image or something. It's just, I look at it and I say, wow, I really like this look, and it's almost like a film look. And that works really well for me. And then there's one thing I really kind of fear with a Fuji or any Japanese-made camera, and that is how does the colors look, because there is this expression or term Japanese colors, and I haven't really decided where the Fuji is yet. I see that the pictures tend to have too much blue and too much orange in them, and I'll make a Lightroom preset to adjust for that. But then again, in natural light, the skin tones actually looks great, and all colors looks pretty precise. So it's not a lot of adjustment. It might be for some skin tones. It's mainly when I get into tungsten light in the evening that then the colors becomes a little bit tricky, and then it's almost like then we just go black and white. But sometimes you actually want the colors to work, and you could say when you have tungsten light or you have artificial light in the evening, you often have orange tungsten light, and you also often have LED light or screens that gives really blue light, and that's just the two colors that the color file of the Fuji seems to be a little bit too strong in. So everything is a little bit too much blue and too much orange, and then in the evening that becomes kind of extreme. It gets really hard to get the colors right. But all cameras you can get really accurate colors because you can go away from the outer white balance. The outer white balance works really well in daylight. I don't think it works that well in the evening, but that's not really a unique thing for the Fuji or anything. That's basically all cameras have trouble with artificial light sources because there's a mix of artificial light sources. But when I want the colors right, and I usually do, then if I do a portrait or some scene where I say, this one, I want the colors to be really accurate, I'll use a white balance card. And here I have one. And that's simply just, I will go into the menu and go down to manual white balance. And then I'll take a picture of this card in the scene that I want to take a picture of. And then the camera is basically calibrating the colors after the light that hits this card. And the point with this card is not that it's gray, but it is that it's neutral, so it doesn't have any warm or cold tones. So it basically just calibrates the sensor so you get correct colors. So that's something you can do with all cameras. There's not really any cameras that cannot get precise colors, but you could say as soon as you rely on something that's called auto, you're basically taking the passenger seat and says, I hope the camera knows what it's doing. In daylight, most cameras know. In artificial light and mixed light situations, no camera really can figure it out by themselves, so you have to help them, and that's when you set the white balance. I'm still in the trial and adjustment and error phase with the Fuji, so we'll see how I get the colors to look, but I'm pretty sure I'll get them really precise and the way I want them. There's nothing in this camera that I cannot control or deal with. So I actually really like this camera. It has a lot of qualities that somehow I like. So I'm going to take it with me. So it's going to live a life in luxury together with my Leica cameras. I travel to more than 25 countries a year. So it's going to go see some action, and then we'll see what comes out of it. What I usually do is I don't really review cameras. I write about the stuff that I use, the light meters and the cameras and lenses. It's not reviews, it's more user reports. It means how do I get this thing to work? And that's the same I'm going to do with this one, is how do I get the colors and the black and white files and the menus and everything to work the way so this camera actually can be productive with whatever I'm doing. And that is articles I release on my website, one by one. My whole website is free. You can read about Leica and whatever. What's out, you read about Leica because you might want to get some of them, and usually a lot of them. So what's out, but in any case, go to my website and sign up for my free newsletter. And if you're really smart, you do it now and you get a free ebook. That was basically all I had to say today about the Fuji. I'll get back with more and watch some of my other videos, and see you next time.